Welcome back to another episode of the Grow RDH podcast. My name is Katie, and I am an educator and a dental hygienist from the state of South Dakota. And we are today going to be talking about the current changes that ADA has proposed in the form of resolutions for the national organization. This has to do with dental hygiene specifically because these resolutions are attempting to address the shortage of the workforce in dental hygiene. And I have to admit, this is the second time I've recorded this. And I feel like the first time was necessary for me to just rant. And that's what I did. And I listened back and I decided that I needed to redo it because I needed to get my feelings out. And it's important when we're addressing conflict, which is unique that we are addressing this in the middle of my theme for November, which was conflict management. And so I found it necessary to re-record because I was emotional. And so I want to present this to you from not of a place of emotion, but a place of objective assessment of what this means. And so I want to address, one, I'm going to outline the resolutions that they've made. And two, I want to address what this means for dental hygiene educational institutions and why this is important for you as a dental hygienist, as a member of the profession, as a member of the current workforce that we have. And this is important for us to care about. It's important for us to advocate for the dental hygiene profession because we represent all hygienists. And when we can collectively come to an agreement or collectively come together and advocate for each other, it is essential in maintaining the level of standard of practice that we have. And those standards of practice are really important because what we don't want to do is dilute down the profession. And man, I just feel like we've been taking a lot of hits. I don't know how you are doing emotionally during this time of political change. And I say political change as from November of 2024, we just had our presidential election, but also in the profession of dentistry itself, we have really just blow by blow been taking a lot of hits. And I am speaking from the state of South Dakota, where we just got done shooting down coronal scaling for assistance that was proposed. And man, we did not have a long turnaround time from the time we learned about their intent to the time that it was brought to the state board. It was within that 6 to 8 month range of us having to act on that. And we did it. We got it shut down. The state board did not adopt the changes, and it was successfully shut down. Shortly after then, the ADA voted on these resolutions, and very quickly after that, the ADHA came out with the public statement. And right now, this is current of November of 2024. The ADHA has put out a statement calling for the ADA to reject these resolutions, and a call to you as a hygienist to speak out against it. That can look like speaking or writing a letter to the national organization, which we're going to talk about, or speaking to your state association and your state board directly, speaking out against this. And so what are we talking about in general? Let's go back to the beginning so I don't sit here and rant like I did in my first recording of this. I'm going to lay out for you what the ADA is proposing. And this intent is to address the workforce issues. There is a current lack of hygienists. This started, I think we felt the brunt of it during COVID. A lot of hygienists left the profession. There is an expected amount of hygienists intending to leave the profession very soon. And this has been on the radar of everybody, right? The ADA, the ADHA came together with a couple other organizations and did, addressing the workforce issues. They did a big, huge survey, and I'll link the survey in the description box below. You can check that out. But the resolutions that they're putting forward are in order to address these workforce issues, lack of hygienists. So we're going to go through them one by one. The first one is Resolution 401. I have them pulled up on my screen, so if you see me looking, I want to read them and what they actually say. So Resolution 401 is increasing allied personnel in the workforce. Basically, what this does is reducing and potentially removing, which it's kind of been minimized, and I don't think that will happen, but reducing the amount of faculty to student ratios in dental hygiene programs. And this is really important because it guides what they're saying to CODA, which is the Commission on Dental Accreditation, is that they want to reduce this ratio in an effort to graduate more hygienists. The problem with this is that the amount of clinical competencies and clinical supervision that faculty provide dental hygiene students is essential to, one, provide safe care and a safe learning environment for students to better serve their patients and better gain experience on clinical care. And I do think that the intent isn't necessarily going to address the root issue, which is why are dental hygienists leaving the profession. We can graduate as many dental hygienists as we want to, but one of the top reasons from that survey that I was talking about for leaving the profession is a toxic work environment. And so this resolution specifically, graduating more hygienists and not addressing the root cause of why hygiene is leaving the profession is kind of a moot point, right? It doesn't address the causes. And what it does is it dilutes down the clinical standards of what the Commission on Dental Accreditation is requiring of us when we're training hygienists. So that is the first resolution. The second resolution, 513, is the resolution Dental Students and Residents as Dental Hygienists. This is proposing that dental students, once they pass dental competencies, it's not very clear here what types of training they have. And I think this training is way less than CODA requires of dental hygiene education. So interesting. And it makes sense. Why does a dentist need the same training when they're not the ones doing that procedure? I find it interesting. This is anecdotal. This is not based on research, but in talking with dentists about doing hygiene, they don't feel competent. They don't feel like they had enough training in dental school to do cleanings. They don't do a lot of cleanings. Can they do cleanings? Yes, absolutely. But do they feel comfortable and competent in doing those cleanings? From the words of dentists themselves, the answer to that is no. So allowing dental students, again, that dental student is intending to go to finish dental school and then become a dentist. Does it address the workforce issue? Maybe, but does it address the root cause of why there is a workforce issue? No. Third resolution is 514 and 514B. This is that internationally trained dentists can come into the United States and work as dental hygienists. This is already sort of happening in the state of Florida. This is allowed, but the state of Florida has laid out the additional education and training and requirements that internationally trained dentists need to complete. So I do believe that Florida has done a very good job at setting guidelines to this, and maybe they're modeling it after that. I am not sure the origins of this, but having internationally trained dentists, the problem with that is that worldwide, there are crazy different requirements and expectations of internationally trained dentists. So saying a blanket statement that all internationally trained dentists can just come and work is not feasible in terms of we have no idea what their training consisted of. So those were the 3 resolutions, and it's important to sort of lay those out just so you understand what the ADA is presenting. I want to address the survey that I referenced, and I think it's important to really paint the picture of why this problem exists. What are the main reasons hygienists don't like working in their settings? And again, this survey has been put together. The ADHA and the ADA collaborated with the Health Policy Institute and a couple of dental assisting organizations. And from this, I will link this survey results. I will link the survey results in the description box so you guys can check this out. You can read the whole thing. It's 51 pages of data. The top 3 reasons for dissatisfaction at work for hygienists was workplace culture, insufficient pay, and being overworked. The top 3 reasons for dissatisfaction at work from dental assistants is very similar. Number 1 was insufficient pay, 2 was being overworked, and 3 was workplace culture. When asked the reasons for staying, so retention, what would make them stay? The results were the top 3 retention factors. 1 would be work-life balance, 2 would be a positive workplace culture, and 3 would be the ability to help patients. I think it's important to reiterate that these resolutions that they are making don't solve any of those root problems about 1, why people are leaving, and 2, what would make them stay. So I find it very interesting that they've done all of this data and all of this work in learning about why people are upset in dentistry, in the field in general, and yet not one conversation has been had about how they are going to address as business owners, right? And that's what makes dentistry unique. Dental assistants and dental hygienists have to work under the supervision of dentists for the scope of practice, which is general knowledge, right? We all know that. But what makes it unique is that when it comes to the governance of a profession, the governance of the profession outlines the scope of practice based on the standards and the research of what those standards are. So when you have a body of research and organizations like CODA, who does such an amazing job at data management and collection of what those standards should be based on sound research, and then you have an organization that is attempting to dilute down the standards in an effort to increase the workforce, when in the workforce, in the data, it shows that those aren't solving the actual problem of why the workforce issues exist. To me, it just from a profession that touts evidence-based practice and evidence-based standards, how can you ignore this data that is saying our workplace cultures are awful, are toxic? And we can continue to manage this individually. We can talk about burnout. We can talk about, work-life balance and all of these things and how you advocate for yourself. But what I think we should be asking ourselves as hygienists is, how are we advocating for the profession in general? How are we advocating for work-life balance? And I'm having the sun is setting, so I have some wonderful little sunspots on me. How are we advocating for the profession itself? And when I speak about governance, what's unique about dentistry, if you look at the medical profession, in many states, nurses govern themselves. they have self-regulation. And I find it interesting that not many people are talking about the glaring conflict of interest that dentists have when they are discussing scope of practice and administration. To me, those things shouldn't be talked about on the same field, because if you're making decisions about scope of practice and personnel, providers who are providing services under a governed profession, and yet those same people that are making those decisions are the business owners that are making the decisions about hiring, firing, pay, hours. If those people that are making both of those decisions are allowed to act with no checks or balances that force them to make ethical decisions about standards and scope of practice, there is a huge problem. And I believe strongly that the only way that we can highlight this problem and make this problem known is coming together. If you ever thought at any point that now is a good time to become engaged and become active in your professional organization, now is the time. And I cannot stress enough, the ADHA has, I'm going to pull this up just because I want to speak educatedly. That's not even a word. So Erin Haley Hintz, she's our current president of the American Dental Hygienists Association. She put out a call. If you were on their email chain, you probably have already received this email. But she is asking for people to speak out against this. And they have a template that is prepared already for you. You just go onto the ADHA website, log into the membership side of the portal, and they have letters. You can send these letters to the national ADA, the national organization. You can send these letters to your local associations, your local dental associations to advocate. You can also send these letters to your state boards of dentistry or whatever organization governs your scope of practice in your state. But it matters. And it matters because fundamentally what's happening is that the ADA is attempting to dilute the standards of care, to dilute the profession in order to meet a business model, in order to meet requirements to keep their practices open. And there is a lot of issues on that side. And there's a lot of issues regarding how practices stay open and business models and insurance reimbursement and all of that. And that is the answer. The answer is that they need to work that out themselves. That is not our scope, right? But from crossing lines, from crossing ethical lines to start to dilute down the professions and dilute down what it means to be a dental hygienist, what it means to be a dental assistant. There has been many duties delegated to dental assistants that, one, they don't have the time for, and two, they're already overworked in their already existing duties, right? They're already overworked. And so I'm using coronal scaling as an example. There was many assistants in our state that spoke out against this, that said, we are already buried. We cannot take on the scaling part that goes deep into who's going to do the assessments, who's going to do the probing, who's going to do all of these things that you're saying a hygienist doesn't have to do. But diluting down the profession is not the answer. And so I hope that this episode is organized enough. Again, this is the second time I've recorded this. I have tried to organize my thoughts. I've made notes and I've tried to stay on track. But there is just so many things here that I really have an issue with. And They just really need to assess how this looks publicly and how this is coming across when it comes to collaborating and breaking down barriers. I feel like what they're doing is the opposite. And we need to advocate for our profession. We need to come together and create a united front in education and educating patients about what hygienists do. We need to create a sense of awareness of, among the dental community, why our unique professional roles are all important. And the outcome of this, if this moves forward, could be detrimental to what it means to be a dental hygienist and what it means for educational institutions who are training dental hygienists, what we are capable of, the resources that we have access to. If they're saying that this isn't necessary, institutions will start pulling resources from these educational institutions, and we will not be able to maintain standards of care. So that is a very light topic. I appreciate if you've made it this far. Thank you for listening. If you've made it this far, I believe that you are just as passionate as I am about these types of topics and why ethical governance of professions needs to be at the forefront of our concern collectively as hygienists. So thank you for listening. Again, if you've made it this far, I appreciate your thoughts, your concern. Reach out with questions, comment below. What are your thoughts on this? How do you plan to educate the general public about what it means to be a dental hygienist? If you like this content, please like, share, subscribe. I appreciate all your support, and I will see you